Well, I think we've got a good load. I've show 501, so let me welcome everyone to this call. I'm Ted Spangenberg, and I'm trying to help guide this effort to the Jamboree, and just it's my honor to serve you on the chaplaincy team. And we thank you all so much for your willingness to be part of us and do this with us. If you've never been to one of these, it's going to be a great experience. Um, I just promise you that it always comes with surprises, but most of them are good. And for those of you who have been to a Jamboree before, just let me go ahead and say up front, it will be a little different than what we've experienced in times past because of a variety of reasons. And we'll get into some of that today, if you like. I'll also go ahead and offer an apology that I did not send out an agenda ahead of time. I was too late in getting that out to Alan for putting out there for us, and I apologize for that. Let me just step through it. I could pull it up on the get him to figure out if I could figure out the technology on screen share, and I'd share the screen with you. But what we'll do is just do a quick identification or intro of the leadership team, and then a quick review. I'm going to ask Alan to do a quick review of the item information that's available on our SharePoint site that he's created for us. We'll talk a little bit about.
Ted, I just dropped the agenda into the chat box too.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Oh, there it is. Well, y'all see it there in the chat box, and feel free to use that chat box to ask questions as we go along. If you think of something that comes to your mind and you want us to get to, just make sure and put it there. And if I don't see it and we answer it out, it'll help me make sure that we remember to do that. But as you look at that, if you know how to open the chat boxes on those, I had to get my grandson to show me how to do that. We'll also then talk about the arrival logistics as much we know about that, and a quick review of our assignments as we have them right now. And we'll talk about what I hope is the stability of those assignments. We'll also then go over some of our subcamp and our assistants chaplain's responsibilities. We'll talk a little bit about things that you might expect between now and the Jamboree, and particularly in terms of information from us, and a little bit that you would get then from the national Jamboree structure. Jeff Thompson is going to talk to us a little bit about some training that we hope to provide and offer to everyone between now and the Jamboree. And Alan's already sent out a couple of things, so he may want to supplement what Jeff will share with us. And then Alan will talk with us about our current plans for what I've labeled here as identity apparel, hats, neckerchiefs, shirts, that type of thing. And then we'll certainly take on some general questions and answers. As we are on a topic and you want to raise a question about that, that's fine. It'd be great to do that. If I feel like it's something we'll hit later, then I'll certainly mention that. We want to be very understanding of everyone else's time. And certainly if there's information that you come across that you'd like for us to make sure for Alan to post in our SharePoint site, or that one of you would want to post there for us, that is certainly encouraged. We'd rather have too much information, but not too little. And I doubt it'll be so much that we just can't maneuver our way through and find everything. Before we have an opening prayer, does anybody know of any other items that we need to add to this agenda that specifically you want to make sure we talk about? Okay, hearing none, and this is not your last shot at that, okay? But I've asked Reverend Vern Wright from way out on the West Coast if he would it's earlier in the day for him than anybody else. So I've asked Vern if he would lead us in prayer to open our time together. Vern?
God, we invite your presence to our efforts tonight. There are leaders, staff, and definitely scouts, your children, that need our efforts and that need our ministry. And we need you to support ourselves, to be open to where you would direct our efforts and our ministry, to help us be educated, ready to go out to the Jamboree coming this July, and to be your presence there and to give your love there. Deepen our fellowship tonight, draw us close together as we start this journey, as we start the journey you've appointed for us. And as you're calling to the Jamboree, all of the leaders, staff, and youth participants that you've appointed, and give us your blessing as we move forward. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Vern. I appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
Let me give you a couple quick statistics about the Jamboree, and then we'll get into some other things. Those that have been to prior Jamborees know that our participant counts have been, between 25 and 30,000, with another 5,000 staff. The Jamboree will be a good bit smaller this time. The total participant attendance participation is going to be limited to 13,250.
Wow.
We are within a few hundred of being at that number. And it's not that we don't want more. It's that once we saw where the numbers were as a Jamboree leadership, saw where the numbers were as of December of this year, and had to make some final determinations about what areas, facilities we were going to use and not use, then that drove our number to the 13,200. We still have some space, but if your council contingents want to send more, then they need to go ahead and get some folks registered. Also, if you're in touch with your council contingents and have some scouts on an overflow list, I'm not sure if your troop's going to have room for them, your contingent, please contact neighboring councils. We want every scout who wants to go to find a way to go. Inevitably, at the last few weeks, participants have to drop out. The total attendance for the Jamboree, including all the Jamboree service team, is going to be 15,000. And we're also within a few hundred of that. And so it's going to be a tricky case here, depending on which one we hit first, because once we hit one of them first, that's it in terms, except for people that drop out, and then others can replace them. Because of those numbers and utilization of those numbers, trying to make the Jamboree more efficient and frankly more enjoyable for those participants, all participant troops, contingent troops, will be camping in what many of us know as Base Camp Charlie and Base Camp Delta. Now, if you're not familiar with the summit site, it is a big site. It has Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and Foxtrot. And so we're only using those two for participant camping, contingent camping. And that a map where all those are is on our SharePoint site. It's interactive. You can zoom in and out and look at where it is. Give you a sense as we talk about your assignment of where you'll be located. And program then areas will be centered in much closer to where they have been before, so that participants won't be traveling during the day, walking during the day nearly as far as we have in past Jamborees to be able to enjoy the Jamboree and leverage all the opportunities that it provides. So that's some of the key things that are different about this Jamboree. You'll hear a lot of discussion in reference to staff, or Jamboree service team is now the official name. If y'all don't mind, I'll just call it staff. All staff except for operations staff and medical staff will be housed in two subcamps up in the Alpha Bravo area, which is across the Converge Bridge. But we will be part of, and will be considered part of, operations staff. Technically, we are part of the program pillar. There's 5 pillars for the Jamboree. Operations is one pillar. But because we are engaged with and become part of the operations staff, we'll be camping with the operations staff. And it's right now, the latest on that is still that we will be camping in the subcamp areas, which we serve, which makes purely logical sense. So when you hear about the staff camps being up at Alpha 3 and Bravo 1, A3 and B1, just know that doesn't mean you for right now. That's the best understanding. We'll be camped at our respective subcamp and base camp areas. So I wanted to kind of give you that sense, because it leads into some of our leadership team. Thomas Martin was not able to be on with us right tonight. I don't think Thomas is on there. He was scheduled to be unavailable. He is from Louisiana, Pine Level, Louisiana. He'll be serving as our base camp coordinator. He and Father Joe Powers, and Joe is on the call. Father Joe, it's great to have you and good to see you again. They'll be serving as the base camp coordinators in that adult camp, in that staff camp. I say adult, there are some 16 and 17-year-old staff there, but that will be where they are. And so they will be a bit separated from the rest of us. We want to make sure not have them feel left out, but they have an interesting duty, and their duty will be a little bit different. And that's why I wanted Joe and Thomas to lead up there, because of their experience in Jamborees and their ability to adapt to those types of scenarios. And I say it because the one thing that will be very much in common is that during the day, hopefully people are out doing program, and most of the staff will be out managing program. But there is some staff that has nighttime duties, and they'll be there during the day, and they may have needs that we as chaplains can meet. But our base camp coordinators, as in all the base camps, help coordinate things that have to happen there and coverage that needs to occur there. But in their case, they're not calling on or have assigned contingent troops to kind of shepherd over and kind of check in on every now and then, because that's just not the way their camps are structured. And by the way, all of those staff bring their own tents to sleep in and that type of thing, whereas those of you in the subcamps and on the operations team, and of course participants bring their tents. But even our subcamp chaplains serving in Alpha and Bravo are part of the operations team there, and tenting is provided along with a cot. Tenting and a cot, if you have a favorite cot you like to use and would rather bring it instead, you are certainly welcome to do that. And typically there is some limited power available in tents. I can't guarantee anything. I know that's the case in our subcamps and base camps, but we'll try to get some further confirmation of that. And so I appreciate Joe and Thomas being willing to serve in those areas. And then we have, for right now, we have four subcamp chaplains serving up in that area also. And you say, well, they're staff, they won't have much to do. Well, we find in Jamboree chaplaincy that sometimes adults need as much care, pastoral care, as youth participants. And so don't let that be another surprise to you. Yes, youth participants will need us, but so also adults, both staff, because they get us placed in some unusual, stressful situations. And so they have those needs. Joe, you want to say hello to us so everybody can see your face and see who you are? Father Joe? Unmute.
Yeah. Hello. Yes, I'm stationed in the Kansas City, Missouri area, and this will be my 5th Jamboree, so it's always interesting and exciting.
There you go. Very good. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
In Charlie Base Camp, we have right now we only have one coordinator. We're looking to add a second one that may yet occur. We had a wonderful gentleman who was going to be our a helper there to David Wayrick, but and some of you would know him, and I'll tell you more about his story later. He's just desperately going to miss being there. But David Wayrick is going to be serving there. Now, what's interesting is that David is, I don't know that he's actually served as in chaplain role before the Jamboree, but he has some tremendous operations experience in a subcamp. And so he knows very well. So he's kind of our link into how sub operations thinks and works. And so David, we appreciate you taking a leadership role there. You want to say hello to the group?
This is David Wyrick, and I have been a chaplain. That's it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then I got pulled into the base camp or subcamp chief's job, which I never really wanted to do, and I did that twice until I said, no, I want to be a chaplain again. So, oh yeah,
that's right. That's right. Yeah, I remember that now. He had served as chaplain, and then we loaned him as a missionary to the subcamp leadership.
I got the best of both worlds.
There you go. Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you for doing that. And by the way, our subcamp, our base camp coordinators will kind of help coordinate medical coverage for the medical tents that will be in each of the base camps. Every subcamps will not have a medical facility. And you'll see that many of these, when you look at the map, many of the subcamp headquarters are located right close to each other. Some are right side by side. Typically pairs of them might be. But there will, in each base camp, there will be a medical facility. And our base camp coordinators will help us schedule coverage of that as they and monitor their chaplaincy needs. But then they'll also help you with anything that they can help you in terms of resources for carrying out subcamp chaplaincy roles. And so that will be great. And while I'm mentioning that, you will note, and I'm not going to pull it up right now, but on our chaplaincy assignments, when you see the next chart, and I think probably the one Alan has just posted, you'll see some that have an ADJ by them. That's for its adjunct. In fact, we have a wonderful lady on our call with us today, Brendan Hanson Smith, who will be serving as a nurse. And she's done this for many jamborees, a pediatric nurse, just a wonderful lady. But she knows that her nursing shift is only so long, and she has also some wonderful skills that are value to our chaplaincy team. And so particularly in terms of caring in medical facilities, hospital facilities. And so she's adjunct because technically you won't find her on any of our official chaplaincy rosters, but she's part of our team. She's an adjunct, and we appreciate that so much. And so I think y'all saw Brenda wave to you there. And thank you for being on today. Brenda. We have a couple of other adjuncts. Joe Black up in Bravo 1 is also an adjunct. He is on a program leadership, has a program leadership role, but again, in the evenings, which is when most of the staff are in the staff camps, he's available and is willing to help us out as an adjunct in a chaplaincy role. And so he will be there to provide help to the other folks up in Bravo area or throughout as they're needed there. In Delta Base Camp is Terry Tilton. Terry, are you on? Terry is only one of two of us that I know who have actually held a funeral or a memorial service at a jamboree. And Terry and I had the, I guess I won't call it.
Phone's dying, so I have to plug it in.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay, you're on now? Very
Go
good.
ahead, Ted. No, we just had some feedback from somebody.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If y'all would keep your microphones muted, and I know y'all ready for me to hush, but you'll hear all these war stories. But Terry and I had, I won't say the honor or pleasure of doing that, but it was a necessary thing to do. And Terry has a lot of experience and has in fact served in this very same role before. And so he'll be a stalwart for us to go to on that. Art Vernon will also be serving in Delta Base Camp as a base camp coordinator. Art, are you on, Rabbi Art? The Jewish faith group is trying to get us another chaplain or two, but frankly, right now all we have is Art, Rabbi Art, a wonderful guy, works with us on the National Religious Relationships Committee, and so he's in that role to give him a little flexibility in a subcamp as you have a need that comes up that may have some unique faith characteristics and is Jewish. Then Rabbi Art will be available for you to call and say, Rabbi Art, I know you're not in my base camp or my subcamp, but here's my need. Can you tell me what to do, or can you come over at a certain time and help us with something? Most of the ministry that you provide will not be faith specific, but where it is and where it needs to be, the resources of the entire chaplaincy team throughout the Jamboree are available to you. That's why we want you to know the faith group identity of every person on the chaplaincy team, so we can know who to call on. And then and we have a couple of at-large folks. One, of course, you know me, you know Alan Morrison. Greg Godwin is on the call with us. I saw Greg a little while ago. He's interesting. He's also what I'll call adjunct, because technically he's not Jamboree staff. He is Summit staff. He is the Summit chaplain during the high adventure camps, and has done a wonderful job grown that ministry from the very start. And he's available to us, and particularly has some particular resources because of being on the Summit staff that'll be extremely helpful to us. Greg, are you on and want to say a word?
Yeah. So I'll be starting in the first weekend of June, the first week of summer camp. And I provide chaplaincy service for both summer camp as well as our Summit experience, which is high adventure. And then to also let you know, Ted, I am planning to go down to the Summit on March 9th. I believe that's the right date. And I've already talked to Wally, and I'm working on the housing piece for the three of you. Good. And he seemed to be open to that. And I'm hoping the rest of the people have to make this sign off. And also that would locate we can keep the vehicles up there at the Piggott bunkhouse to be available if something will come up during the night. If we have to move chaplains from one place to another, like if the rabbi needs to go over the other base camp, if something comes up like that suddenly at night, we can help with that. But anyway, I'm working on those things, and as I get more information on that, but they seem to be open. The other thing is that Summit has hired a permanent person to run the health lodge, EMT. That's new. Well, they've had people, but he's a new person. they have a new person down there that deals with the safety and those kind of issues, which I'll be meeting. And then they have a new camp director as well, which I'll be meeting. So I'm going to work on getting all that on board about, working with you all, and because they've never had the staff has always worked there, Summit staff, but they've never had a chaplain on staff. So this is I'm trying to get it defined where we can get those resources directed to the to support the chaplaincy during the Jamboree.
Very good.
Listen,
Thank you, Greg.
That's thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And thank you for reaching out there. And the reason he mentioned that housing is all of y'all have a place to stay, but Alan and I don't. And so he's trying to help us figure that out, and we'll get it figured out.
Let me one more thing, Ted.
Yes,
and it'll be going on while I'm at the summit this summer in the Jamboree. But my daughter, who's 37, who is also a United Methodist pastor, was diagnosed with breast cancer a few days ago. It starts her first chemotherapy this Thursday.
All right. So, and what's her name, Greg?
Lauren Godwin.
Okay. I will put her on my prayer list. Yes.
She lives near Cumberland. She pastors in Kaiser, West Virginia, and can actually see the Potomac River from her church in Maryland. But anyway, it was kind of a shocker.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm sure it was. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. The other person we have on, and I don't think Patrick Bradley was traveling, not able to join us. You may have seen him on the list as the aide to the chief. And the main thing is he is our youth resource. Patrick is a young seminarian. He is, I think, in his second or third, he's about halfway through his Master of Divinity work in seminary. And so he's the reason I have him as an at-large resource. Is he's also going to be available to you as y'all run into a unique situation where you may need someone to interpret young people talk. And so anyway, he'll be available, and there may be opportunities where we'll ask him, or you may want to give him an opportunity to say, hey, I know I've got this issue I'm dealing with, and if Patrick would want to come sit with me and learn through that, it's basically a practicum for him to actually really learn chaplaincy real life and learn pastoral care real time. And so he's a great scouter from us. South Carolina, and I think you'll enjoy when you meet him. The other one is Jeff Thompson. Jeff is on with us. Jeff has an unusual role in terms of, we have a Jamboree. We have the 3 base camp Jamboree medical facilities. We all have a Jambo General Hospital, kind of like a big MASH hospital, if you want to call it that. And our medical team serving there. And we'll have a chaplain, I believe, embedded with them. We're still working on that. But once a participant's needs or anybody's needs, a Jamboree attendee's needs go beyond the medical capabilities of the facilities there at the Jamboree, they're sent off site to a regular hospital, a big time hospital. And then there's needs there. And so Jeff Thompson, for the last 2 or 3 Jamborees, has done just a marvelous job doing that and coordinating that role. Sometimes it even gets involved in patient transport, particularly bringing them back from a hospital when they're released to come back to the Jamboree, but we don't have a transport means. And so all those things come into play. And you'll hear Jeff talk just a little bit later on in our meeting today. So Jeff, I'll give you a chance to say hello at that time. With that, I need to stop a little bit here and let's let Alan give us a quick run through of what you've got out there on the SharePoint site for us.
All right, I'm going to screen share with all of you. Of course, those on phones, that'll make it awful small for you. But so if you have not yet gotten onto the SharePoint site, hopefully you will soon. If you are in Macintosh world, you may be struggling a little bit more. I'm going to check on some resources to help with that if that's the case. For the most part, I think the issue has been that some of you have had the SharePoint emails end up in your spam. And so I've just started sending those through my Gmail account, which you all seem to be getting fine. So nature of Microsoft world, thank you very much. On the SharePoint site, yours will look a little bit different than mine because mine's an administrator view. But you will have toward the top of the screen, just under that blue bar, beside the 2023 chaplaincy, you'll see the home button and site contents and chaplaincy team information survey. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you go to the chaplaincy team information survey and you can complete the survey there. That will give us some of the good basic information that we need to help make sure we're all set, ready to go. It will ask you for your bio. If you have not written a bio before, in the last email I sent, or one of the last emails I sent, I did send you a copy of the bios from 2017. And just as an example, so you can kind of see what others have written. Do make it brief. I mean, a primary audience for this, honestly, most of the participants will never see it. There may be some adults that see it. It will be primarily our group that will see it as the primary audience, is a way for us to get to know each other a little bit better, to know a little bit more about each other's background. Of course, we are looking in particular, it's helpful to know if you have things like CPE and mental health first aid. We are asking for you to also do the chaplain roles and responsibilities and chaplain training that's online if you've not been to Philmont, if you've done the Philmont training, and you can check the block on here to let us know that you've done those kind of trainings and or other trainings that you've done. If you haven't been on your email in the last day or so, the Erie office of NAMI, National Association of I'm not sure what the letters stand for. I don't remember offhand. I thought I was going to pull it off. NAMI, I took my mental health first aid through them. They offer the courses free of charge. I contacted the instructor and she said she'd be delighted to be a part of helping to train any of our chaplains that would like to take the training course. So contact her. Her email is an email I sent, and she'll get you signed up. If you're not available for the class coming up this Saturday and the following Saturday, she'll have more opportunities that she can put you on the list. So we just hope you take advantage of the opportunity. And of course, the chaplain training, if you have not been to Philmont for doing the chaplain training there, is available through the myscouting.org. And then we're asking some other questions. The photo upload does not work. Again, thank you, Microsoft. So just email me your photo and that will be fine. On the home screen, you will find there some news items that we're plugging in as we've got things to share. You'll also find a documents list, the documents we've already posted. I won't say that the master roster and the chaplaincy assignments is completely up to date, because I'm not sure I've captured all the changes from Ted as they've come in. And there's a couple of you, of course, who have signed up in the last few days that I don't have all that information in there yet, but we will update that as we receive it. As we have other documents ready to share, this is the place where you will find them. The next column over, you'll find an items to be developed list. So I decided to put that up there partly so you know things that we're expecting to have coming. And so that way it'll save some questions. And of course, target dates, the staff sessions are listed there for you. As we schedule other Zoom meetings, we'll go ahead and get those onto that list as well. And there is a weather app there that you can see what the weather is. 49 degrees right now down in Glen Jean, West Virginia. And up toward the top here beside the news are also some hot button items. One for the contingent operations apparel. That's where you can order your shirts. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's also a button that'll take you to the homepage of National Jamboree, the interactive map that Ted mentioned. And again, as an example, the 2019 daily devotions are there right now. I'm still waiting for word from National to see how we're going to make the devotions available that we have prepared for this year. So that's kind of what's on this site. And again, as we have other information, we will update it. 142 days until the arrival of the contingents unit scouts and leaders.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. And if you have suggestions about additional items you'd like to see on the SharePoint site, please feel free to email Alan and we'll find those resources and put them up there for you. Does anybody have any quick question about the navigation of the site that he's put up for us?
Yes. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Ray.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Ray Turner, and I've been trying to find this SharePoint site, but I'm having difficulty trying, to access it.
Ray, I'll send you the link again.
Sir?
I will email you the link again.
All right. Well, I tried that link and nothing happened. So I'm just curious as to what could have been something on my.
What kind of a computer system are you trying to access it from?
It's Windows.
Windows-based computer.
Right. Sir?
It is Windows-based computer.
Yes, it's my computer that I use here at work. I work for Elon University, and so.
Oh, if you're on an educational system, they might have limits that might be interfering with it too. So that may be the problem.
Okay.
Yeah, because oftentimes college universities, some businesses will also have restrictions in their systems that will prevent you from accessing other organizations' SharePoints because they use SharePoint more than likely.
I tell you what, let's do. Ray, why don't give Alan and myself a couple of days to see if we can't figure out, and maybe you can, and we'll be in touch with you, figure out a way for you to make sure and get access to it, because we need to get that resolved for you some way, somehow.
Okay. Well,
so we can work with you on that.
I have a computer at my home, a laptop at my home, so maybe I could, use it there. So if you could maybe email me the link, and I could try to access it there at my
Okay.
home.
Yeah, try that, because that may be the issue.
Okay.
He'll email it to you again, and you try it from home. And if that doesn't work, you get back directly with him. We'll find some resolution to that. Right, you need this information.
Well,
Let me encourage all of you to obviously first focus on the team that you're working with in your sub camp, and then obviously within your full base camp and the full chaplaincy team. But look at those bios, look at those pictures, kind of get a sense of a feel for each other. And that way, as we're doing these things in the future, we'll have other meetings like this, and we'll have some training like this. You'll hear a voice, see a face, and you say, "Hey, I know that's one of the folks I'm probably going to be tenting with at the Jamboree, because they're in my sub camp." And they're depending on the size of tent, there will be 2 to 4 folks in each of those sub camp operations tents. And so what we have suggested and operations has suggested is that we put the chaplains together if it's appropriate, and so that if that sub camp in the middle of the night has a need, obviously they'll know kind of who's on call, but they would know where to go find the chaplain. And that's rare that occurs, but every now and then it could. Okay, let me just talk 30 seconds on arrival logistics. Right now, the arrival date, and you'll get something out from Nashville about this soon, will be July the 16th. That is a Sunday. But if you know you cannot get there till Monday, you just make sure, let us know that, so that we know that you're not going to be there till then. But the reason we'd like everybody who can get there on the 16th is because beginning the morning of the 17th, we will start trying to have some things to make sure that you've got everything you need. We may have a joint session. Your base camp coordinators, we want to pull the sub camp chaplains together and talking about how things are. Alan and I want to get around, make sure everybody's got everything they need. And your sub camp operations team will be starting to work together, plan together, have activities together to make sure y'all are ready for the troops to come in, because the troops arrive on the 19th. And chaplain's always a huge help in helping them come in, and because of our attitude in terms of our service ministry. And but that is the date. And again, if that's problematic, let me know. Some have said, "Well, I come in earlier?" Well, frankly, no, unless an extreme unusual circumstance and you're going to bring your own food and everything else, this Jamboree is not going to be prepared to handle anybody. And so what you'll probably see, we'll say it doesn't matter what time on the 16th you come in. We just need to know you're there. What will likely happen, and you'll come in a different gate than those who've been there before. Again, something different, but you'll get instructions about how to get there. You'll be able to go directly to drive directly to your sub camp, offload your gear at your tent, and then take your car vehicle and park it up in Alpha and Bravo, rather than way away at what we used to call dead parking. It'll be close by, accessible during the Jamboree should you need it for some reason. And then there'll be a shuttle or something to get you back, or your fellow sub camp members will all take 2 or 3 at the time, and they'll have a shuttle car to bring you back to your sub camp. So that's kind of how to plan those arrival logistics. If you have a specific about that, then just pop us a direct email to myself or Alan, and we'll get something worked out on that. But look for something from Nashville. If you're scheduling transportation, many of us will be arriving by private vehicle, then let us know that. If you're coming into one of the airports flying in, they will provide a paid shuttle available. But if you let us know when you're coming in there, and if we've got 3 or 4 of y'all coming into the same airport within 2 or 3 or 4 hours of each other, who knows what we might be able to work out. So don't pay for a shuttle ticket until we can see what we can get worked out, because one of our team that's driving in may be driving right by that airport and can come through about that time and pick you and the guy that was on the other flight that just came in the other gate and get you to the Jamboree. And we'll be efficient about how we use the resources with which God has blessed us. So that's any quick questions on arrival logistics. And a couple of you are what we call midterm, your second half service with us. And I'll get with y'all specifically on that. You'll get some similar instructions, but it's going to sound very familiar to that. Before you buy a shuttle ticket, make sure we know if you're coming by plane or by train, Vern, and let us work something, see what we can work out.
Question.
Quick review. I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Where do we end process on the 16th?
There you'll get an instruction, an email instruction from the Jamboree National itself, and they will tell you, they'll give you a physical address for the gate on which you will come in, and there will be signage that shows you exactly where to drive to get to the various locations.
So we're not doing Ruby Center.
We are not doing Ruby Center and Dead Park and Dead Storage. No, we are not.
Okay.
And again, it's supposed to be a much smoother in-processing process for doing that. But that's what we're told right now. We're not doing, we're coming in a totally different gate even. Even if they do use Ruby Center, they'll take you to, you go to a different gate. You won't go to Dead Park, and you'll take your own vehicle in our case, to our sub camp first, and then go to park it for parking in the Alpha sub camp, Alpha base camp. Because there's not troops camping in some of those sub camps up there, they'll have that'll be parking for staff vehicles.
Yeah, understood. We weren't doing Ruby Center, but just didn't know for sure what the in-processing location might be. But you're saying the Jamboree will tell us.
Yeah, they will tell us. And by the way, anything I say here, I'll have to categorize as tentative. Things can change, and they have changed. One of the reasons we haven't gotten this group together in sooner, because things were changing so in such flux. But things are very quickly settling down now, and and things are coming together and know what we're all. Which takes us really to our next point, and that's a quick review of the assignments. There is an assignment chart. Well, yes.
One question before we go there. What I think I just heard is you would like us to arrive on Sunday, but Monday morning is okay, but we'll clear that out. Do you have any information on when we need to leave? I'm thinking.
Yes, I do. Yes, that is a great question. Thank you. And I'm gonna get the date wrong. Alan will help me. But 28th. On the day that troops depart. Yeah, July 28th, troops will depart, and all contingent troops are to be gone by noon. And even though in times past they've all told us you can be leaving the next day, this will be my 13th National Jamboree, my 5th one at the summit, or however many we've had there. And in every case, if particularly in your sub camps, if you have buttoned things up at your sub camp, and your sub camp chief releases you, you'll be able to. 95% of us, I'll say everybody, you plan to be able to leave that afternoon of the 28th. You'll be out of there before dark.
In fact,
now,
Ted, that's really the key to what you just said, Ted, is your departure is, don't come back to Ted and I for your departure. Your departure will be your camp chief saying, okay, you guys are done here.
Because I'm sure you'll be everything with us, and we'll obviously give updates. Now, if you have a flight that doesn't leaves on the morning of the 29th, that was the best flight you could get out of West Virginia, then there'll be a provision. It's certainly acceptable to stay over so that you then catch that flight via shuttle or whatever else. But you'll have the opportunity to leave by mid-afternoon, if not sooner, on the afternoon of the 28th.
Thank you.
Great question, though. Anything else on arrival departures that makes sense at this time?
Yeah, this is a Don Fisher.
Yeah,
Just
Don?
asking, what is the best airport to fly into? I'm from out west.
Somebody who's flown in want to give an answer on that? I always drive.
The closest one is Yeager in West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia.
Charleston.
But it is wicked expensive, as they say here in New England.
Okay.
They also the transportation surface also offers shuttles from the Charlotte airport. Right. It's a substantially longer drive, but there is shuttle service available from Charlotte.
So it's an extra 3 hours from Charlotte, and it's pretty much all 4-lane. But when you're checking your flights, I live in West Virginia, and when I traveled, I always check Yeager versus Charlotte, or I'm near Pittsburgh now, or Pittsburgh. You never know on what day it'll be cheaper to fly out of Charleston versus the other two airports. So you may want to just have someone kind of help you price it the different
Don,
ways.
I'm from California, Don.
Okay.
And Northern California, and a group of us are flying from Sacramento or Oakland, and we're looking now to fly into Charleston as cheaper than flying into Yeager.
Yeager is Charleston.
Yeager's times for us on the West Coast, they just get in at really crummy times at night. I mean,
Are you talking about Charleston, West Virginia?
No, I meant Charlotte. Charleston, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Coming into Yeager, the times from the West Coast are not really good. You get in at really odd times to get to wherever you want to get, or stay in a hotel. So we're looking to fly into North Carolina this time, and we've done that before fairly successfully. It is a drive, but those two.
It's not a hard drive though.
No, it's an easy drive. We rent a car. We have a rental car, couple of them.
But you're right about the time at Yeager. It's not. Getting in and out of West Virginia on an airplane is not easy.
No, you either fly all night.
There's also an airport. There's also an airport in Beckley.
Yes.
Yeah, it's smaller and that's pretty expensive.
You
get to go through a neat tunnel if you come in from Charlotte too.
It's Don, you can contact me after I get up on the list. We can talk.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Alan, can you pull up, since that's easier than sharing my screen, can you go ahead and pull up the assignment chart? And we'll go to that next and talk. And so let's talk about the assignments. And again, this document is out on the SharePoint site. I believe it is fairly fixed right now. The one thing that would change any assignments right now is if we have one of y'all who suddenly has something come up, and it has happened, one of y'all who says, oops, I've just had this happen in my life. I've developed this ailment or whatever else has occurred, or something has happened with my parents and I now have to see about whatever. It says that I can't come, and we would have to do just a wee bit of shift there. But I would say that these assignments are very good. You would want to maybe wait until close to the end of the ordering time for ordering. If you want to order an operations shirt that says, Subcamp C2, well, you may want to wait till, I won't wait to the very deadline, but wait closer in just in case something should change. But these should be fairly rigid now. I mean, we ought to be pretty fixed. Again, you've heard my disclaimer on that. So Alan, can you blow it up just a little bit? So Scott, I know you had a specific question about, and again, this chart is out now on the SharePoint site. You figure out how to maneuver that, navigate that. So Scott, we had you in D4. And so Scott, what you want to do is look over those other two folks you're going to serve with in D4. Read the bio for John Partridge and Brandon Simon. If you just don't like them, don't think you're going to like working with them, you better tell me in a hurry. We'll shift you. But otherwise, I've never run into.
How bad do they snore?
Well, now that's a key of who brings the best earplugs and who hits the sack first and goes to sleep first. See, that's how you manage all that. But anyhow, those are the assignments. I mean, there was a little bit of artistry to trying to, again, share around faith groups, share around different skill levels, share around those, a distinction between chaplains versus chaplain assistants. And I'll touch on that briefly here in just a little bit. And with each of those, you see above that your subcamp chief's name. And let me just say that they know they have your name now about serving in their subcamp. What they have not yet been given, and they'll get tomorrow, the next day, is your email address and phone numbers. And so they will start including you in their communications to the rest of their subcamp staff, because they want you to be part of their team. They expect you to be part of their team. And so they're going to invite you with open arms, because they're going to be depending on you for a lot of help. And we'll talk about that when we talk about responsibilities in just a moment. So you see there the faith affiliation for each of those. The asterisk means, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody, that means you're been designated, or you're classified by your faith group as a chaplain assistant versus a chaplain. And some of that's where, in cases where some faith groups don't have a professional laity, a professional ministry, professional pastoral leadership where they've been provided training in pastoral care. Others don't endorse as chaplains unless they are ordained, or in the case of Catholics, a deacon or a priest. And so there are various restrictions on that, and we'll just show you how to navigate that in just a little bit, and we'll learn that between now and then. But please don't take that as any kind of disparagement. I think it's great that we're scattering these types of resources all over the place. Father Joe, just so you know, if Stephen Wayne comes in approval, he'll probably go into C1. They're a little slack and have a second session person there. So that's right now where I've kind of got, you see how that's kind of a light right there right now. Now I also have Keith Hudson in there for session 2. So I need to get you an updated list, Alan, and I'll get that to you as soon as this call is over. Okay, any questions about assignments? Okay, rather than try to step through all the lists, we've already been on the call 50 minutes. I'm not going to go through every responsibility, but let me just share with you just a quick overview and insight. I mean, our role is for pastoral care, and whether it's an emotional need, a spiritual angst, whatever it is, we're there, and we're there to serve people of all faiths, both youth and adults of all faiths. Kind of put on your hat a minute, trying to walk in somebody else's shoes, but imagine that you're a first assistant scoutmaster from a council, and you're there with a council contingent troop, and none of these 36 scouts that you brought are in your troop from back home. They're all from other troops. You only knew 2 or 3 of them before y'all had your one training weekend when y'all trained to come together as a jamboree. You've been on the road for 4 days with these 36 kids and 3 other adults, one of which you really may not care for. But that's who the council put in that leadership role, and that's who you've been working with. And you've been putting up with all this and all the stresses and strains of getting people in and out of museums and parks and other places over the last 4 days as y'all came across country in that chartered bus. And you have now finally got the jamboree, and it was raining when you put all your tents up, and you just had your first meal that morning. And it was, it was cooked by the scouts, and it had its challenges because somebody hadn't trained well on the equipment that they were going to provide. And you're at the end of your road, and a chaplain you walk by as a chaplain, and you see it happens to be a troop you're calling on that morning, and that first assistant scoutmaster was the adult left in charge of the campsite. And you walk in and you introduce yourself and want to see how things are going and how he's doing personally. And he just unloads on you. Well, that's what you're there for. You're there as part of a ministry of presence. So our first role is to be there for the youth and adults and staff in our subcamps, to be there with your ministry of presence, to provide them a kind of a calm presence, a sense of, I won't say logic or reason, but a sense of, look, we all have a challenge here. Talk to me, tell me how I can help you. Let's go get a cup of water, a glass of water together, a cup of coffee together. Let's show you where you can do that. And so that's one of your key things that you did. In fact, that's probably the number one thing that you would do. You find yourself most often doing that. And by the way, when you're doing those visits, you only may want to have 3 or 4 units, I say troops, or crews assigned to you. And one of the commissioners in the subcamp will be a buddy with you, partner with you. He'll have those same troop assignments. And y'all go do those morning rounds together to your 4 or 5 troops. And you talk to that adult that's there and you discover these things. Or you discover that you got one kid in that troop. The adult tells you, we've got little Joey over there, and he hasn't said a word in 2 days. We don't know what's going on with him. We can't get him to open up to us. And you say, what do you think Joey's going to be back? We'll come back and let's talk with him. Let's just see. He may just need to see a different face, hear a different tone. And so that's the type of pastoral care that you provide. It's the most common form we do, and it can make a difference. And whether that first assistant scoutmaster is willing to stay at that jamboree and complete his commitment and get some enjoyment out of it, or make a difference in whether Joey stays and doesn't put in to go home and can actually then enjoy the jamboree and get in with his buddies and get out there and go do something that's bigger than anything he's ever done before. And so that's our role, is to have them do that. And as part of that, you have the opportunity to share with them, ask them about their duty to God, and have they sought God's help in any of this challenge, and is the ways that you can help them do that. What's their faith background? Well, here's what in your faith background, what I understand that you would normally do. And so you have an opportunity there to give them that care and let them think about duty to God and how God can be part of their experience to enhance their experience. And so you can really make a difference, because this should be a once in a lifetime experience for every scout and every adult that's there. And so that's your role. Now, as part of that, by the way, same thing on your subcamp staff. You've been with them 2 days longer than everybody else. You kind of get to know them, and you'll get a sense for when one of them is struggling and having issues, or maybe there's a conflict issue between them and whoever's their boss on that staff, in that staff structure. And so conflict resolution can come in handy. And so we may have a training time on conflict resolution between now and then if you need a refresher on that or haven't had any. There may also be the opportunity, and you'll have to get a feel for this, and you work together with the other chaplains in your subcamp or your neighboring subcamp, or maybe the base camp, because there's a pavilion every subcamp. And by the way, the Catholic group's done a great job of this, because they have rituals and services that are very meaningful to those of their faith. But I served with a wonderful Catholic priest. Actually, I'm sorry, he was a Monsignor, Father Joe, 85 years old, Monsignor Brady. And he held Catholic Mass every morning at his pavilion in his base camp at 6:30. And for the first day or two, I was his reader. Now, I'm a Southern Baptist. And can you imagine a Southern Baptist being a reader for Monsignor Brady? But, by the second or third day, the word had gotten out that he was doing that. Both Catholics and non-Catholics were coming. He had plenty of help to do his reading for him. But, and so you may choose, if you're from a Protestant faith background, and you and your group may decide to do something every evening, every morning at a certain place, word gets around. And that's the thing you can do too. On Sunday, the 20, I'm gonna get the date wrong, 3rd, 4th, I don't know what date, whatever Sunday. By the way, we come in on a Sunday the 16th, so Sunday the 23rd. The plans are still being nailed down about where and exactly what. But most of the major faith groups, collective groups, will have separate worship services. And just like a kid may go to the biggest zip line he's ever been to, the biggest shooting range he's ever been to, the biggest zip line he's ever been on, the biggest canopy tour he's ever been on, the biggest climbing wall he's ever been on, hopefully he'll go to one of the biggest worship services he's ever been to, or biggest Catholic Mass he's ever been to, biggest Protestant service, depending on his faith background or which one he wants to go to. Now, you may be called upon to help with that service that's respective to your faith, but it won't be your principal job to prepare and lead that worship experience. That'll be somebody, your faith group entity will be guiding that effort, but you may be called upon to help with that. You'll certainly want to encourage folks from that faith, of any faith, to go to the service that's being held that day for them. But it does not mean that you can't do, I won't call them impromptu, but more localized, more daily types of things within your subcamp. You may be asked by the your subcamp chief to offer a 2-minute devotional every morning at subcamp staff meetings, whenever those are held. Or you may want to offer to do that if he or she does not ask you to do that. And those are all great. Anything that helps us kind of understand that we're here by God's grace and help us keep focused on God's role in our lives at the Jamboree will be a great help. A couple of you others have served, many of you have served as a subcamp chaplain. What did I leave out? I know, okay, stopping in if particularly a kid in one of your troops in medical, base camp medical, they think they're going to have him released by tonight. But in the meantime, he might need somebody to come up and say, hey, hello, how you doing? Whatever else. And particularly if we need to transport a young person from that base camp medical over to the headquarters medical, and depending on the type of injury, you may be asked to help be a second adult to help transport a scout, to go with a scoutmaster to help take a young man over, give you an opportunity to provide him some comfort and during that time of y'all's transport getting there, but helping provide medical and other traumatic situations will also be at home. I hope you don't have to do what I did at one Jamboree. I had to deliver the message to a young man at the request of his family that his father back home had been put in prison, been put in jail, been arrested. And I was on there with him when we called his mother and let his mother give a further explanation. And I've had to deliver death notices, and those aren't any fun, but in some cases it was expected. But anyhow, those are kind of the other things that kind of go with the territory. Let me stop. I've said too much. Anybody else got a unique situation that you ran into as a subcamp chaplain? I'm not trying to scare any of y'all. I just kind of know what you can get into.
This is David Wyrick. I have served 3 Jamborees as subcamp chaplain, and you hit it right. You hit the nail on the head. But you would, if you've never done this before, you will be absolutely amazed at after a few days how many adults will open up to you. How many adults are struggling with something? They've got a problem in their marriage or their work or whatever, or they're tired or whatever. It's incredible. And you just allow yourself to be open to that. Every day's different. We're not like the program people where they kind of like do the same thing day in and day out, day in and day out. Every day is different, and it's full of just this thing of having this opportunity to minister both to the youth and to the adults.
May I speak, Ted?
Yes, please, Brenda.
So I've not been a chaplain. I am a parish nurse, and this is my 8th Jamboree. And because you're going to be working with people like me, and I'm working with you all, I would just say one of your best ministries that you can do for us staff, and I say this from a lot of years of experience, is be present with us when we need help doing physical work. If you want to get to know us, when we have to set up those Jamboree setups and we've got to move stuff around, you know, we just always can use another kind pair of hands, even for an hour or a half an hour, and you will get to know us and where our passions are. And, you know, you will be taken into the fold. We consider you a part of us. And, but get in there with us. If we're looking like we're overwhelmed with tasks, help us with our tasks. And everything's running a little short, you know, Ted, you alluded to that. So, I know just from as a parish nurse, I'm going to be doing what I do as a nurse, but I'm also going to be doing what I do as a parish nurse, which is loving these kids and being there for everybody like y'all are. So, but work side by side with us when you see that we're overwhelmed with our work, because it's a lot. So
one of the greatest things that occurred, thank you, Brenda, one of the greatest things occurred, and I think it was 2017 national, maybe in 2019 world, but by I don't know why or how, but somehow chaplains were given the wrong date to show up. They showed up the very first very small tranche of staff that showed up they showed up at the same time all the base camp chiefs did, and all the way uppity ups that showed up have to get things planned ahead of time. We were there early. In some of the subcamps, we were the first staff on site. But let me tell you what those chaplains did. They started the tents were up. They started putting together those cots and had all those ready. And then when their fellow subcamp staffers got there, they were the ones that were helping them unload the vehicles, get set up, help them find their tents, helping them get their gear in there. They provided a wonderful ministry of helps And we got, people really got a great appreciation for chaplains. That we're more than just the guy who's teaching a Sunday school lesson. I mean, we were the folks that were there really helping those staffers side by side, and it built a great rapport with those subcamp staffs because it was clear that we were there to be of help in any way we could. And when you've done that, it then is amazing, as David said earlier, how later if something's troubling one of them, they'll come to you and say, "Hey, can I share something with you?" And of course, our answer is always yes. All right. Well, thank you for that. The most unusual one was the memorial service that Terry Tilton and I did together at the last World Jamboree, and we'll give you the full story on that sometime. That will not be expected of you, but strange things happen.
Ted, can you share whether whether we will have a listening ear component this year?
Great question. We've never had listening ears at national jamborees. It was part of a World Jamboree structure. It was utilized in a fairly large way at the last World Jamboree. And so the mental health team wants to incorporate it. They will have a presence, but a very small presence. In most cases, they will have a little dining ply set up, a table, a picnic table or something, a table, a couple of chairs. I think they're going to try to have them close to each base camp medical station. In some cases, they may have one between two subcamps that aren't right at a base camp, but they'll have that presence. And frankly, they'll probably may get more advertising than chaplaincy does. But the point is, the listening ear, people can say what's going on or whatever. But when a young person or adult stops in to see them, and those listening ears are listening to them and hear of something that's sounds like it's a pastoral care need, then they will immediately they'll help that young person or that adult go find one of us subcamp chaplains for their subcamp. Say, hey, this young person would like to talk with you, or that type of thing. And so they may also say, whoa, this young person or this adult has got some serious stuff going on. They need to see a mental health clinician, and they will then take them to each base camp. We hope will have a little mental health group, small group, 2 or 3 folks. Hopefully one of them is a clinician. And by the way, that is a resource that will be available to our subcamp chaplains, to us as chaplaincy. When we run into a scenario that we understand that we've got a pretty significant crisis here. We've got something really going on, and this requires or would be helped by the services of a professional mental health clinician. Then we also then have the opportunity to take them and go with them, help take them to the base camp mental health clinic, mental health center, and let them be attended to there. And we may then do some follow-up for them, but the listening ear would be a one-stop, one-time for those scouts, Terry. Thank you for bringing that up. And you'll get more information about listening ear. They are still developing some of that. They are having a bit of trouble finding enough staff to do what they wanted to do. And some other areas are too, but I know that they are. Let's talk quick, and I know our time is running on, and I'm going to try to have you out of here for sure within 90 minutes, maybe by 80 minutes. Expectations for engagement between now and the Jamboree. We will do more of these sessions. I don't want to overburden you with them, but they will get more topic specific, particularly might be associated with some online, with training that we'll provide in this format, this setup. Some of it will be follow-up on questions you've asked and we need to share. Some of it, well, here's what we found on resources. Here's what we're going to have available to each of you there at the Jamboree. Here's where we stand on our apparel stuff. So we want engagement in that. We're going to talk about training in just a second, but frankly, we're going to want engagement in that training. Even if you've already been trained in mental health first aid, frankly, we could all use a refresher, and frankly, that is expected. I know you're a volunteer, but I know you want to do the best job you can. And so when these trainings are made available, whether we host them or whether some other agency hosts them, then yeah, we expect you to participate in that. Yes, if you have not been the online chaplaincy training, it is a much shorter course. It's not nearly as in-depth as what we do at Philmont, but that is an online course that's available to you. Also take the one for Chaplain's Aid. Some of these troops may have designated Chaplain's Aid. You'll find that most of them, if they have even designated or not, they're not really active in what they're doing, but it may give an opportunity to work with a young person who wants to serve, trying to serve as a chaplain's aide. So engagements in those trainings are expected as we have these future meetings like this. That'll be expected if you're available. If not, that's why we do the recordings. And feel free to, if you and the other 3 or 4 chaplains in your subcamp want to get together and have you on those Zoom meetings, say, hey, I want to let y'all know about me. I was born here, raised here. Here's what I've done in scouting, and here's why I enjoy chaplaincy. Y'all feel free to get together and do those kind of team building things that normally we do in person. But you may not have that time when we get to the Jamboree. We may be full throttle when we get there. So feel free to do those types of things, but do stay engaged. If you ever feel like you're being left out or not getting information you need, let us know, and we'll try to fill that need. Speaking of training, Jeff Thompson, give us a word on training that we're considering.
Well, let me give a shout out to Alan already talking about mental health first aid. I think that is a very good course. Usually you can do it over, sometimes you can do some of it online, but if you get a chance to do it in person, I think it's better because there's exercises you can go through. Usually a 2-day course. Sometimes it's abbreviated more than that, but it's a course that trains you and pretty much all, not just chaplains, but other people, to identify the problem, try to understand what's going on, then how do you respond, and know your, kind of like wood badge, know your resources, what you can reach out to. So I really want to encourage you, if you can, if you haven't already taken that. Now, some of you may have taken psychological first aid, and that's a very good course too. It's a little more in depth, but mental health first aid is a good course to have when you're dealing with people. And along with that, we're hoping to be able to do some training, at least orientation, with the mental health staff and with the medical staff at the Jamboree. So you know what resources are available there. Ted's already mentioned listening ear. That will be a resource that's going to be in the subcamps. It'll be someone that you should work close with so that they know how to refer to you. Or if you have someone that's come to you with some type of issue, some of these young men, young women, they're on medication. They get off their medication and it can cause problems both medically and psychologically. So how can you push that forward, making sure that we take care of people and that we're aware of things that are going on with their physical and mental health. So someone from the medical staff, or at least maybe a couple, to let you know what resources are available there. If something happens to one of the participants, where do they go, how are they taken care of, and especially if they go off campus, where would they go off campus? There's a hospital in Raleigh General that's there close to the Jamboree site, but they're a little limited in what they can do, and they really don't have a very big pediatric program. So if something was to happen that they needed to take them to Charleston, which is our next step, that's a good hour and a half drive. So they go to the Children's Hospital, how they're taken care of. The trauma hospital is in Charleston if there was a trauma, that type of thing. So just kind of help you understand more about the resources that are available. And also, probably we need to talk about critical incident stress management. Mental health is overseeing that. I've been working with them with that. I'm not saying that you need to go out and take a mental health, a critical incident stress management course. They have one, actually, they have 3 now involving pastoral care, but at least you know how it's set up at the summit. So if we had some major event take place, then you'll know where to go, what to do, instead of trying to be part of the chaos that's caused by these things. And Ted has also mentioned about conflict resolution. I think we can do something in the area of conflict resolution, of how you can mediate situations, because as Ted said, after a few days, people are hot and they're tired, and things start coming up, and that could be among adults as well as it could be among the youth. So how can we be a mediator in the midst of that? So we're still working on that. Most of these will be done hopefully during the orientation session, and that we can see each other face to face, and with the other disciplines like mental health and with medical, so that we feel pretty comfortable. If something comes up, we know what to do.
I will say that to those of you who have had training or want to take training in critical incident stress management, we will have, in hand in glove with mental health, we'll have a critical incident response team in the pastoral care area, but it would be for those who've been trained in that and want to serve in that role. And in that case, you you get pulled off to who knows where on the Jamboree site to serve in that role until that critical incident's been resolved and those needs have been taken care of. And so it's kind of an extra duty. It's some good things to know, but it can be some tough duty too. So just kind of be aware of that.
And
Thank
I'd
you,
like to
Jeff.
know if anybody's had any training, or at least like either one-on-one or the group training. It's good for us to know, so that if we need the resources and you know where you can come, we can also be speaking the same language and start getting involved in things pretty quickly.
To that point, Alan, if folks take additional training or failed to list some of that training when they did the survey, can any of our team members go back into your SharePoint site and update their survey responses?
Yeah, I'm not sure that they can, but they can certainly email me the information so that we can capture it.
There you go.
And that's a good way of making a segue. I did get the question from someone, gee, I haven't had any clinical pastoral education or pastor faith-based counseling. What do I need to do there? We're at this point, we are collecting information so that we know what the expertise is on our team. The chaplain training pieces through the BSA, the mental health first aid are the ones that we're really looking for you to do specifically now. Because of course, CPE is typically hospital-based, so that's not something you're going to pick up between now and Jamboree if you don't have it. The mental health first aid, you've heard both of us talk about it quite a bit already. There is a youth version versus an adult version. They're both good. If you've got time to take both of them, by all means do. But if you don't, I'd take the youth one. It will give you more detail specific to the youth that still be very applicable to the adults that you're dealing with as well. My only caution is the national site that I originally sent you. You can't actually register for any courses through that site. It just gives you the offerings. You'd have to search down and find, and that's tedious. And so that's why I just went back to the organization I got my training through, said any chance you'd be willing to help me out with this, absolutely would be glad to. In fact, actually my trainer, Scout Sunday fell in between the 2 weeks of my training. And so when I said something the second time about being a pastor and being active in scouting, and we'd be doing some of this with Jamboree staff, that really piqued her interest. She said, "Oh, we just celebrated Scout Sunday at my church this past Sunday." And we had a great celebration. There was some recognitions done as a part of that. So she's a person that is in tune with scouting and very pleased to be able to do this. The courses they basically are doing 3 offerings nowadays. One that's completely in person, one that will do an introduction online of about 2 hours of material, and then the rest would be done in person. Or the third is that you do the 2-hour introduction piece, similar to YPT training, and then do a Zoom group for that. Actually, the Zoom group, we did all of those exercises as well as they would do in person. They're just not quite the same as they would be in person. But to do in person, obviously, you're going to need to find an agency somewhere near you. Not all of them deliver the product for free. So you just need to be aware the offering I'm putting forward for you is already underwritten, and so there is no cost that's associated with it.
Great. Thank you.
I'd like to say one thing too with medical, and we're hoping nothing happens as far as a resurgence of COVID or something like that. But I think it'd be also very important for us to know what are the different infection control standards that are going to be at the Jamboree, and how do we both model that, and how do we help the medical team with that. So we'll be talking some of that too in the orientation.
One of the other hats I wear is I serve as the safety lead for Territory 12, which happens to include Summit within our territory, although Summit's not a part of our portfolio. And so we are addressing a lot of those issues within that group as well. And we've got direct access to the environmental folks on BSA staff who will be there in full swing throughout the Jamboree as well.
Good. All right. So look for more to come about training opportunities, and please be about that. Don't wait to the last minute on getting some of those things done. All right. So let's quickly move, and I see some questions coming up in the sidebar that we'll answer here in just a second. But Alan is, and Alan has been working hard to understand what we want to do with identity apparel. I do know that, let me just say, operations group wants to have their folks kind of looking alike, and you are part of the operations team. And shirts and things are a little more difficult to deal with in terms of quantities and trying to get the right kind of discounts for quantities and things like that. And so I believe what we have come to a conclusion about, and y'all see if y'all agree, is that our principal means of identification as a chaplain will be by either headgear and or a neckerchief, a neckerchief that would be unique and identifiable. And so that way you would be able to wear whatever Jamboree shirts from time or other scouting shirts that you want to use, or again, the operations gear that's offered. They already have a site set up where you can go get one that's, you can have your sub camp on it, or whatever, 2 options of what you put on there, I think, has a name option for an extra charge, that type of thing. And Alan is working to get that set up so that we'd have a way to go there. And what we're really looking at doing is a couple of different, as part of that, the necklaces would all be the same, and try to also provide a pocket patch that you might want to sew onto a type of shirt. But then also headgear. I know some of you would like to have broad brim headgear to keep the sun off your ears, versus some want a ball cap style, and we're trying to figure out how to accommodate that. And so most of that's not quite ready yet, but just know that that is our plan, to have a neckerchief for you and a cap for you that would be very identifiable. And if it's too hot for a neckerchief and you're just not a neckerchief person, then one or the other would be expected. Both would be great to have on while you're, I won't say just on duty. By the way, you're going to be expected to take some time and go see the Jamboree. That's why there's more than one of you in your sub camp. Okay. And so y'all going to rotate around whose day off it is to go see the Jamboree. But we encourage you to do that, to wear your chaplain gear. And you never know when you might run in to be able to minister to a need while you're out and about, seeing scouts enjoy the Jamboree. But we want you to have time. You do not need to be stuck, holed up in that sub camp the whole time. And so you are expected to go out and see that Jamboree, so you can, it helps you relate to the kids going there, and you ought to be able to see and enjoy this experience also. So keep that in mind, and that's part of what y'all can do to manage that within your group. Al, is there anything else we need to say about identity apparel?
No, I don't think so. I did want to just throw in the comment that at the 2013 Jamboree, our first time at the summit, I had the joy of sitting at Jamboree headquarters the one day and watching a Jewish rabbi and a New Testament to a Muslim scout. Only in Jamboree can you experience that.
How about that? Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, a couple of quick items that let me go to in the chat group. We'll be using the same, Rich has asked this, Rich Bowman, good question, Rich. We'll be using the same tents and double-decker cots as 2019. I'm not certain of that. They were a little unclear on the types of tents, but what they advised me, they'll have some 2-person tents and 4-person tents. I'm assuming, I made the assumption the 4-person tents would have the double deckers, but they're not going to try to have more than 3 in any tent. And so I don't know for sure. And so we're waiting to find out a little more clarity on that. And I even saw something puzzling from program group. Y'all may have all gotten this email from the program pillar that said something about operations teams will also be in camp, have their tentage in A and B, but in a special area name. And I don't believe that's the case. We are going to be camped in our sub camps, as last I heard. And we're still trying to find out exactly what types of tents. I'm almost certain it'll be the style of cots, but whether they'll all be double decker is what we're hoping. They've been able to avoid the double decker, because I realize that some of that can be challenging for some of us as we chronologically advance. See how nicely I said that. Let's see. Next question. Y'all made some good comments to help people on travel. Jamboree fees. Frankly, let me tell you why you haven't been billed or asked for money, and it all relates to the bankruptcy process. And there was another hearing on that 2 weeks ago. We're expecting a judge's ruling any day to be finalized, all that. As soon as that's finalized, be saving up those coins, because you're going to be hit up for the Jamboree fees. But in the meantime, nothing's due. They don't want your money. but once that's settled, they're going to want your money. And so just be ready for that. But don't worry that you have not seen a reminder about that at this point. Hopefully you have gotten a reminder about uploading your medical forms, and that's something I think was kind of odd. They said they wanted it done in 2023, but yeah, they were asking for it in 2022. So yeah, you'll need to get your medical forms uploaded, fairly certain. I've also heard that they want, particularly the operations group, they want your YPT training, even though it hasn't lapsed, to have been done in 2023. So, I'll look for some further clarification on that. And we may, I see you, Scott. And it may be that when you start getting contact from your subcamp chief and that subcamp organization, they're going to ask you for your copy of your YPT. And they may say, we want it to be this time. Well, if you've got one and even at Jamboree time, it's still in force, or certainly if you've done it within the last 12 months, send them the certificate you got. And if you don't know how to, go to my.scouting.org and print it off again to send them, or download a PDF file of it, just contact Alan. He'll tell you how to do that. So expect that, and that deals with fees. And I know some of you are having to leave, and so we're trying to zip on through these. So that's the ones I'll see in the chat group. All right, it's free for all. What other questions do you have?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify who has to bring tents.
Okay, unless you hear differently, none of you need to bring a tent. None of your fellow subcamp members will need to bring tents. They will have a tent set up for you and ready, and a cot. And no one will need to bring cots, even if you're bringing your own tent. The only folks who have to bring their own tents, well, contingents bring their own tents, but staff who are living in Alpha and Bravo, not serving, they're living in Alpha and Bravo, have to bring their own tents. For instance, Jeff and Pam Thompson. Jeff's working with us in chaplaincy. He's our medical lead for off-site medical. Pam is working in her faith group booth in the faith and beliefs or duty to God and country, whatever they're calling it, area. Well, they'll be staying together up in Alpha camp, the adult camp. They should be sharing a tent together there, and they'll be bringing their own tent because they're not part of in our subcamp staff structure, as y'all are. Everybody else here on this call, except Alan and myself, you're on a base camp or subcamp staff, and they will have tentage for you. I've reaffirmed that in a meeting with that leadership last week, and they, again, they are having to say everything's tentative, but that's the plan. So you don't have to bring a tent. That'll be provided for you. And those, by the way, they're nice, roomy tents. You can stand up in them very well. They do very well in the climate. It is warm during the days, but it can get very cool at night because of the elevation at which we'll be. And they're early part of the night, you'll be begging for that. Later part of the night, maybe not so much so. But Greg will give us a better update at one of our future meetings on how to plan for staying warm.
You want to keep food out of your tents.
Yep.
There are bears.
As in any camping situation, yeah. As in any camping situation, keep food out. So, but
I know, but there are bears.
I will try to confirm the amount of power source available inside each tent so that everybody can at least charge a phone, that type of thing. At this point in time, you should count on utilizing your own personal cell phone for our intergroup communication. We'll be given a special, I'm going to use the wrong terminology. We'll be given a special communication link on an app that we'll put on our phones, and it'll give you the opportunity to text to to all of our chaplains or just chaplain leadership or whatever. You'll be given some options of what to do there. That'll be our principal means of communication with each other. They won't be issuing us chaplain radios or anything like that. And nor will they be issuing any other radios to any other staff groups.
A reminder for people who use a CPAP at night, you need best to have a battery. I think it's being looked into as to whether or not we're going to have batteries for use, but that's something you want to be on top of because there won't be electricity to plug into. There'll either be batteries from medical that'll be available, or otherwise you need to have your own battery to run your CPAP, or you can charge it. Often we have charging places in the medical units in the tent.
Yeah. And
Two quick
for my part, I've got a little old small solar panel that I use to charge a little small battery, not for CPAP, but for charging phones or whatever else.
And
I'm
yes,
sorry.
Bert,
What about
you-
meals?
Meals, great question. Thank you. Almost all, I'm fairly certain all of our meals, those of you who are in, those of you who are up in Alpha Bravo area, you'll know the Chat and Chew Up. If you've not been there, there will be a dining facility. In times past, we've actually eaten with troops. That will not be the case this time. There'll be a nice dining facility, be a good place of respite for you. You and your subcamp team together there with the other operations subcamp staff, you'll take somebody go to an early lunch and they'll come back with the man, you go to a late lunch. And so those in Charlie and Delta, the Piggott Center, the dining hall, the big dining hall at Piggott Center will be taking your meals. In all those cases, you'll go up there for breakfast, you'll draw a bag lunch to take with you for the day, and you go back up there for dinner.
Ted,
So that's
Alpha Bravo has the same design, Eagles Nest dining hall and Alpha Bravo. And if the staff numbers you gave me are accurate, they probably will be feeding everybody through those dining halls.
Yeah, that's the plan right now.
The
Yeah,
food team,
so they won't be in a tent.
the food team is also going to have another tent adjacent to Fork in the Road Dining Hall in Alpha Bravo. There's going to be
Fork
an
in the Road.
additional
I'm
tent
sorry,
in
that's the
Alpha
other place
Bravo.
I was thinking about. There is Fork in Road is that other dining hall. They are
Yes.
planning a Chat and Chew too up there also.
They're also planning a Chat and Chew there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the last we heard. There was cheers when somebody announced that at some meeting before. I don't know.
Yeah, for those of us in the sub camps, we'll have to travel to get to it, but it'll be there.
Yeah, okay.
I did just add a hot button on the SharePoint page, marked Jamboree resources. That will take you to the page that actually the program email also sends you to give more information as it unfolds about all the arrangements. And Ted, just to clarify your question that you were trying to figure out from that email, rereading it, what they're referring to is that the operations team hasn't announced yet specifically which subcamps in A and B are going to be used and which teams are getting assigned where.
I got you. Okay,
That's what that was about.
That makes a lot more sense. That makes a whole lot. I just didn't read it carefully enough. Thank you.
Chad,
that's good to know. Okay.
Do you have a number? What kind of numbers are we looking at right now? Do you have any idea?
Total for the Jamboree?
Yeah.
The limit on participants, which includes youth and their adult leaders, is 13,250, and they are over 12,000. I think they're close to 13,000 now, 12,6, 12,7. So they're getting very close. Total numbers for the Jamboree, including staff or JST, is 15,000. And they're not sure which limit they'll hit first, but when they hit that limit, that's when they stop taking any other registrations. Now they may develop, I don't know about standby list and how we handle if we lose somebody, how we backfill them. Don't know yet. That's the numbers.
Two quick things, if I may, Ted.
Yes, Tom.
The Northeast Region Jewish Committee on Scouting is meeting in New Jersey on March 19. Should there be a solicitation for rabbi participation at that event? Or is there already networking in place trying to attract rabbis?
Art Vernon Rabbi Art is working on already having that in place, but it would never hurt. And if you don't know Rabbi Art, you could pop in an email to that, but to that effect. But I feel certain he is, but it doesn't hurt for added effort because we would like to have. Now,
a member of my committee is going to be installed as the chair. So I'll put a bug in his ear, and he undoubtedly knows Rabbi Art, and maybe we can solicit some help.
Yeah, Rabbi Art is the national chaplain for the Jewish Committee on Scouting, but yes, please put that plug in through your friend. Absolutely, because we could use another one. Now you notice in C2 that will include the Shomar Shabbat contingent, but they will have their own chaplain with them, not one of our Jamboree chaplains. So But
My
thank you.
second
Yes,
quick-
Tom, please plug
My,
that.
my second quick question was a transportation one. In the past, I've taken Amtrak to Beckley. It does not look like they serve Beckley anymore. Does anyone know the
Thurman.
closest where?
Thurman.
Thurman? Thank you, sir.
It's very close to the Jamboree. We've had contingents come in there unless it's changed with Thurman, and it's just a few miles from the gate. Down over the hill by the river.
Over here,
And
over the river
Ted-
through the woods. Yes.
Yeah, and Ted, just to let about the numbers, what's not included in those numbers is about 200 to 300 seasonal staff that's will be on the Jamboree staff. And they'll be
Right.
there several weeks prior, and some are there come in before the season starts, and several of them, a lot of them stay afterwards for programming. So we got staff that's there 4 to 6 months a year, seasonal staff, and they are housed in Foxtrot. They have developed seasonal staff housing. It's tents, and it's a little. Anyway, they've developed Foxtrot for that. That's something new at the summit.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Okay.
there are 200 to 300 staff that will be there working with program people.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Somebody else has answered the question about bedding. Yeah, you need your own bedding, and a light sleeping bag has worked well for most people. Don't forget your pillow. There's a personal gear list that's out there on the Jamboree site for JST. It'd be very helpful to you.
Question for our United Methodist chaplains. Greg or Alan, do you know if there's going to be a meeting ahead of time out of Nashville? Is there going to be any pre-planning?
I don't know, unless Alan knows. I know Steve's said he's a little behind, but he's planning on getting the Methodist stuff organized. Do you know any more, Alan?
Yeah, nothing's been discussed with me yet.
He hasn't discussed any details, but he's, we're gonna have a booth, and I don't know about training.
Okay.
I can't answer that.
All right, guys, I hate to cut off the faith specific stuff, but we're past 90 minutes now. And so let's continue. Let's wind this up. If obviously other questions come up, pop them out to myself and Alan. You have my email address, you have Alan's. And again, we've covered lots of different things, and I appreciate your patience tonight. I appreciate your engagement tonight. But get those questions out of there, because it may be the very question somebody else has, and we can either, depending on the type of question, we can go ahead and post an answer. The next time we start sending out weekly updates, we'll have an answer to that. Or if it's something urgency, whatever. And Alan, as we post additional things on our SharePoint site, unless it's something superfluous, you may, maybe help to know that something new has been posted. Just a quick note popped out to everybody would be good.
Yeah,
Any other suggestions?
We'll try not to bury your emails with too many notices going out, but.
Yeah. Okay.
When is the next Zoom? Do you have another Zoom meeting planned, or?
That's a great question. We do not have a date. We've not set a date. What we're going to do, we need to figure out how well this worked for other folks, how well sending out the recording worked for it. I would like to do one towards the end of March. So I won't say one a month between now and then, but that might be a good thing to do. And
Ted,
so
why don't we plan for one on this night in March 26th?
March 26th, let's do that. If we have a big pushback for that, if the same folks who couldn't make it tonight can't make it on that one because of it's being the fourth Sunday evening, then we'll look something different. But otherwise, let's plan on March 26th. For everybody here was I guess because we're in different time zones, the timing is it's hard to find a different time than this to fit all the time zones.
This is okay for those of us on the West Coast. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, your sun's still up.
All rain here. All rain.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a great question, though, Terry. Thanks for noting that. I thought of that earlier, but I didn't have it on my list. Okay. Again, send those cards and letters and questions and whatever. And for sure, when we get something figured out on hats and neckerchiefs, we'll get a note out to you. And Alan is diligently working on that. He's trying to get past some things on that. And we'll try to go to a specific site where you can go ahead and know what you're getting, know what you're paying for, that type of thing. All right. Any last word? Thank you so much. God bless you and have a great evening.
Thank you for your leadership.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.